Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Let's go to the Western Conference. We're going to ask the same questions. So before we get into the games themselves, let's talk about these four teams. Grizzlies, Warriors, Mavericks, Kings. Which team would you like to be like moving forward past this season?
Oof, that's tough. Like immediately I'd say the Warriors, but at the same time they're obviously getting pretty old.
Right.
So, um, the Grizzlies I just am getting frustrated with and don't know what to think about anymore. Um, I mean the Mavs, I don't between the Mavs and the Kings. The Kings I think was kind of similar to like a Suns thing where I don't want to say they're bigger names, DeRozan and Levine and stuff, but they made some bigger moves and kind of messed up their core that they had from a couple of years ago when they were like a top seed and looked pretty solid. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. The Mavs are, I guess I would pick them just because they've had so many injuries all year and it'll be interesting to see what they look like when they have 80 and they have Irving and they have the rest of their team healthy. They have a pretty solid coach. So, I mean, out of I'm not confident about any of them, but I guess out of the four, yeah, and the Mavs would disagree because they're just gonna, hate everything forever from losing Luca. But if you just, forget that ever happened and just look at these four teams in a vacuum, I guess I'd probably pick them.
Okay, that's yeah, I'm gonna still go with the Grizzlies because they're still young. I think Ja is like 25. Bane's about the same age. Jaren Jackson Jr. is the same age. And really, if they can just make one move for someone, I think they're right back up there. The problem is they held their cards for too long, right? They should have made a move 2, 3 years ago when they after they were the number two seed. They just needed to make that one move to get them over the top, and they were too scared to make it. But they still have all their picks. They still have a pretty young team. They have a lot of depth. GG Jackson, for instance, he was like a big thing last year when everybody was injured, and he was on the G League the last couple weeks of the season because like they just don't have room for him. So I just think I would still go Grizzlies, but I think I'm with you. Like there's enough pros and cons to every one of these teams. It's hard to pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the team that you wouldn't want to be moving forward?
Uh, uh, I honestly would say the Grizzlies because I
Oh
just
man.
think they're going to frustrate you. There's a difference between a young team that's growing and a young team that's just stupid. And I feel like the players on their team that they're relying on to lead them are just immature and they're never going to grow and they're never going to learn. So because of that, they're never really going to get better.
Yeah, I heard somebody talking about this, and it's sort of I think why the Pistons got better so quickly is they just brought like three veterans into the room. Like they got Beasley, Hardaway, and Tobias. That's really what they did. Now they added the floor spacing, but it also added a sense of maturity to the locker room. And the Grizzly, they kind of have an off season where they do the same thing, where they add like they have a bunch of young guys. Let's add a couple different veterans onto the team, and it could change the atmosphere of that team. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, I could see the frustration. I would say the Kings for me, just because I think, obviously DeRozan's what, 34, so he's getting up there in years. And then it's like, well, Zach LaVine isn't exciting anyone. Like if you say next year like the Spurs are healthy, maybe and what there was one other team that was like, oh well, the Suns. But if you're like the Spurs are healthy, I think the Kings are the obvious choice to me to drop out of the playoffs because I'm not truly excited about anyone on their team. They're like who Sabonis is. Keegan Murray's a fine like starter in this league. He can get better, obviously, but then you know who DeRozan and Levine are. So that's why I would say the least of those would be the Kings for me. Okay, let's talk about these games. Let's go. Let's start with the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Warriors. The Grizzlies' offensive rating is 6th. The defensive rating is 11th, and the Warriors are 16th and 7th as far as offensive defensive rating. Now, just remember the Warriors is going to be a little different because a lot of their rankings came before the Butler trade. So this is um, obviously a little different. So who do you got winning this game, DJ, and the Grizzlies versus the Warriors?
Yeah, I'll pick the Warriors on this. I mean, I think we'd both agree we're kind of surprised they ended in this spot. You know, if you jump back even 1 week from now, it looked like they were fighting for the 3 seed, and now they dropped all the way down to the 6. Um, right? 6 or 7?
Yeah, seventh, yeah.
7. Okay. So, yeah, I'm kind of surprised they're even here. You know, they know how to turn it on and when to turn it on. And I think, you know, all the veteran leadership, they have aspirations to win a championship. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but when they look at a team like the Grizzlies and they're playing them at home, I don't think they'll have any issues disposing of them.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because the Grizzlies and the Warriors both have 48 wins. The Timberwolves have 49, and then you got 50, 50, 50, 50. So it's like it's really like a 2 game difference between all these teams, which is crazy to think about. So it's just like you screw up once here or screw up once there, you end up in a play-in situation. Like the
Yeah.
Bucks game, that almost put the Wolves, like you mentioned against the Wolves, they almost play in. I'm with you though. I'm gonna go with the Warriors as well. I just think, they're veterans. Like you said, there is a little bit of tomfoolery at times with the Grizzlies. So I think the Warriors are going to be, just more ready for it. And I also think with the Warriors, they just don't want to mess around. I think they want the time off, and they're going to be more desperate than the Grizzlies. So I'm with you. I'm gonna pick the Warriors to win that game. Okay, I'm just writing this down so everybody knows that this is how I podcast. Okay, so then we got the other matchup, the Mavs against the Kings. The Mavs are 18th in offense and 20th in defensive rating, and the Kings are 7th in offense and 22nd in defensive rating. Now, remember again, a lot of stuff happened with the Mavs without Luca before the Luca trade, then Davis, and then Davis got injured for 2 months. So, who do you have winning this game?
This, I think, was one of the tougher ones for me to figure out. The matchups are relatively even, I feel like, as far as looking at their overall roster and like watch them throughout the season. Like I say, the Mavs just have had so many injuries and they've just been playing with whoever they can, get warm bodies on the court with. Obviously with AD in there, he can, definitely control the game at times. But I just think right now the Kings have more good, healthy players that are going to be on the court. Definitely, I think the Mavs are going to play really hard because they're going to want to try to prove, that they can still compete with who they have. Um, but yeah, I mean, neither of these teams are good right now. It's just, and that's what we get with these play-ins is none of the teams are really that great or exciting except for like the Warriors Grizzlies. That's like the only real matchup in these 4 matchups we have. But I guess I'll just go with the Kings just because I think when you do have Levine and DeRozan and Sabonis, together, those 3 I think are more tried and tested than what the Mavs have to throw out there right now.
Yeah, the thing is like, so the Mavericks, Klay Thompson's not, he's still good, but he's not Klay Thompson. You have Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I remember him just owning Sabonis. Like he has Sabonis's number. So that works in favor of the Mavericks. It's just that Spencer Dinwiddie right now is in your starting lineup and he's your point guard. And it's not that I hate Spencer Dinwiddie. I think he's like a good like 6 man, but he's not like the point guard you want starting in big matchups. So to me, I personally think because uh I'm largely with you that they're healthier, the Kings are. They have more what's it called, chemistry because they've played the season longer together. I'm going to pick the Kings as well, and I think the Mavericks will be eliminated. Um, is it in Dallas or in who's the higher seed? I think the Kings are the higher seed, so that means it would be in Sacramento, which I think is important. Yeah, it's in Sacramento. So yeah, I'm gonna pick the Kings. It would be hilarious though if it was in Dallas and then Dallas lost the playing game because there would be a lot of booing for
A
that.
lot of booze.
Yeah, okay. So who do you have then with the Grizzlies and the Kings? Who do you have winning that 8th spot?
I'm just gonna pick the Kings. No real rhyme or reason except for I mean I can say the coaching change and they're gonna be kind of like, I mean the coaching I guess isn't like a big deal in the NBA, although in a series it definitely is, but in one game it probably isn't. The Grizzlies for all, rights should win this game, but I just think it's gonna be really funny if they don't.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
So I can see Levine and DeRozan balling out for one game. I mean, those guys, they're kind of desperate for having some sort of success, and I think it's feasible for them to win that game. So I could see it possibly happening, and I just don't care for the Grizzlies, so I'm just gonna say the Kings.
okay, okay. Well, I'm gonna go Grizzlies. I think that the top 8 seed, if this would have been like back in our day playoffs, right, where you just top 8 seed gets into the playoffs, I think the right 8 teams would have gotten to the playoffs. That's how I feel about this list. So I think the Grizzlies are better than the Kings. I just, they've been doing more pick and rolls, which is, I think, why they stopped doing that early in the season was mind blowing to me, considering John Morant thrives under the pick and roll. That's how he gets to the rim so well. But part of the reason he's so explosive too. But anyway, so I think they're the better team. They have 8 more wins. I think they're gonna end up winning this game. So I have Grizzlies. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.